Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Everyday Heroes podcast. So, we're in Autism Awareness Month, and it's a pretty cool month because we get to showcase all of the amazing things that our kids are and do and have, and who they are and who they can be, as opposed to thinking about all the things that they can't do, right? All the things that they are in deficit about. And I am so excited for you to meet my guest, Harry. He is an author, he's a dad. He's a dad raising an autistic child and a typical child. He's married. And can I just say one thing? And I'm going to try not to be emotional because, it hits deep when you hear someone else's story. And so many of those parts were so similar to our journey. And his book, From Struggle to Strength, A Father's Journey, I'm going to muck it up now. Sorry, Harry. A father's journey to hope and I missed it.
A Father's Journey with Autism and the Power of Hope and Positivity.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
There we go.
It was close. But if you have a chance, you need to pick it up. You need to buy it. You need to listen to it on audiobook because this book is everything for a parent raising an autistic child. This book is how we are going to move forward with our mindset. This book is what it looks like to have a roadmap on how we can get to the other side without feeling like I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So Harry, welcome to the podcast. Please share with us a little bit about your journey and about this amazing book.
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be on. From my understanding, I'm the first father that's ever been on the podcast.
Yes.
And I'm kicking off April Autism Awareness Month. And this is, it's like I said, it's amazing to be on. So long story short, my son, Gus, when he was around 2 or 3, my wife started noticing that there were some decisive differences with him. She would drop him off at my parents' and he didn't seem to care. He wouldn't make eye contact. He had extremely delayed speech. So, she was concerned that something was wrong. And, in the beginning, I was that belligerent father that really refused to accept that my son could be on the spectrum. And Natalie, you don't know me, but I tell people all the time, I'm the type of guy that could have fun at an insurance seminar. I say this all the time. If you put me in a monastery, I'm having shots of ouzo with the monks. We're both Greek, so you get that. And I never could really envision something like that could be wrong. I thought at minimum he might be introverted. But the story behind my book is my wife persevering between mocking pediatricians, difficult pediatricians, quite frankly, a belligerent husband, until really a seminal point where my son went to a birthday party. And instead of physically being at the party, he was the outlier. He was in the corner. He was stimming. He was kind of bongo drumming. And my wife was really upset. She couldn't get him over with the other children. And our preschool teacher, Miss Josie, who's a hero in the story, grabbed her and said, listen, I love you and I love Harry. I really think that Gus could be on the spectrum. And it also here in the States coincided with a huge Oprah Winfrey special about autism. And my wife came home extraordinarily broken. And that was the first time it really hit me, you could be wrong on this. And believe it or not, we had a family member working at the Cleveland Clinic Center for Autism. And we were fortunate. We leapfrogged. Instead of 6 months, it was 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, my son was diagnosed. And on the way home, so from Cleveland to Pittsburgh, it's about a 2-hour drive. And as I talk about in my book, the first hour, I went through all the emotions everyone goes through: anger, frustration, depression. But that second hour, I've been a boxer and I'm a martial artist. And I went into a hyper-adrenalized state. And a lot of people have said to me, you really flipped the switch early, but I did. And I realized, not my son. I'm going to fight from that minute to the second we got back till now. He's 21 years old right now, and do everything possible. And I didn't want to hear about a limitation on my son. I didn't want to go there. And I thought, you know what? Let's make him the outlier. I want him to be a success. And the book is about that fight. The other thing, Natalie, if I could add, is I'm on the board of directors for the incredible Autism Caring Center here in Pittsburgh. We helped found an organization called PALS for special needs children. I've had a lot of exposure speaking at fundraisers, things like that. And what occurred over and over again was hearing from mothers that their husbands weren't on board. So what I decided, if you're looking at my book, it is, just remember the gold boxing gloves. I wanted to create a book that's a motivational book, but it's also short for a reason. It's about 150 pages. I wanted to break through the psyche to the fathers that wouldn't accept the diagnosis. If you hand them Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, they're throwing it out a window. I wanted an easy read that would penetrate their skull, and also a read that would motivate mothers and fathers with newly diagnosed children. And if anyone, there's a lot of how-to books. If I flipped around the iPad here, I probably have upwards of 50 books on autism. They're very thick, the how-to books. This works synergistically with them. So that's what led me to this journey. And I was surprised that there weren't more male voices that have gone pen to pad to write a book. And I tell my sons all the time, the lion that is heard is the lion that roars. So I want to be a force in the States and on an international level about awareness and really motivating fathers in particular to be actively involved and really, really help their children.
Yeah, it's definitely one thing I hear about that is the common thread from clients, friends, colleagues that, dad just isn't necessarily always on board, right? Because it is hard to give over the fact that this could be our reality. Our reality could be that our child is diagnosed with autism. And what does that look like for the future? How do we then show up? Like I was saying to you before we went on air, that, most of the dads over here are so excited to kick the footy around with their kids. And then if that idea is now evaporated because maybe their son, doesn't have the gross motor skills in order to kick that football, that dream then just gets shattered. And that is a really painful way of grieving. But, I often say a lot on the podcast, I say it a lot in my blogs, it's okay to stay there. It's okay to go to grief. It's okay to dip your toe in, but we can't stay there. We can't stay there forever because it's not helping you and it's definitely not helping your child. And so this is why it's really important that we, your words have impacted the way that, not only the way I show up, I think I've read a lot of, those self-help books that you talk about, and in terms of a lot of coaching books, how mindset plays a big role in how we're going to show up as parents. But unless you're actually putting it into practice, it's not enough just to read it. It's, I would be, if I would say to your, to the listeners, get out a highlighter, highlight all the pages on Harry's book that you think that you can implement, that you can put into practice, because isn't the saying going that applied knowledge is power, but it's applied knowledge is power, right? It's not enough to just know it. You need to put it into practice. So one of the things that you talk about in your book is the 2% rule. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. And this is where I bring martial arts. And in my book, there's a lot of Sun Tzu, a lot of Bruce Lee. I bring a little bit of my fighting background into it. But so let me give you an example. Like in a Tung Sudo class, I'm a 3rd degree. If it wasn't for bad shoulders, I'd have my 4th degree black belt. But you go in and people think they know how to throw a punch. You're just going to throw your arm out. And that's at a white belt level. And what you finally really learn is it starts with your feet, your roots. And then it becomes your hips, and then you extend the right knuckle. But the point being, I don't care if you're a 5th degree black belt. Every class, you're getting incrementally better, whether it's a strike, a block. So what occurred as a dad, I start hearing from the therapist, okay, we have food therapy. We have socialization we need to work on. We have sensory issues. And what happens is I started to get buried. You would wake up and you would break out in a sweat and go, oh my Lord, I have 5 to 6 to 7 items they mentioned. So the one day I woke up and said, enough of this. I'm gonna go into the mindset, the martial arts mindset, and I'm gonna work on one item and make my son 2% better today. And so let's say it's socialization. And we sent him here to what's called Wesley Wonder Kids, where he would go and interact and I could watch him. So we would talk about some of that and I'd improve him. So I knew that day I accomplished something. Now, that being said, if 2 other items got worked on and he improved, that's icing on the cake. But what I decided each day was I'm going to pick one thing and I'm going to make him 2% better. And it really did cut out the cacophony that was surrounding me because, and any new parent listening to this, you're going to get overwhelmed because there's so many facets of the child that need to be developed. And it feels like a giant weight that's falling on top of you. Take a breath, pick one, work on one. And while that's going on, if you could pick up a few more that day, that's, like I said, icing on the cake. But I think it's very important to remember that because all of us can get so overwhelmed throughout the process. It's a daily grind and it could wear you out if you're trying to fixate on everything.
100%. Oh my gosh. And I love that 2% rule because you're not going to go from here to here in one day. And I think that that's where a lot of parents get so frustrated. I will definitely put my hand up and say I was one of those parents, right? I used to pray like, come on, I just want to hear him talk. I just want to hear those words. And of course, every Christmas would come. I'd be like, oh, it's going to be next Christmas. He's going to start talking next Christmas. And the next Christmas would come and he still wasn't talking. And I just remember thinking, like, why? What's going on? And, it's just as slow. When he's ready, he will speak, right? No, and that's not the case for every child. And I want to preface that. There are some children that are only going to be able to talk through an AAC device, but they're still communicating, right? Their ability to communicate with you. And I think that is the really important thing. But that 2% rule is going to get you either over the line or it's going to get you below the line where you are struggling and you are, like you said before, burning out. And as parents, we don't have that ability to burn out. There's no time to burn out. You really need to make sure that you are looking after yourself so that you can go to the next level. So
exactly. And every one of those little wins accumulates into a big win. But you said something very important I want to make sure to mention. My son, yes, he was a little bit more mild than some. You have mild, moderate, severe. I have been at fundraisers where people come up and go, well, my child's severe. It doesn't apply. And I go, nonsense. It's myopic thinking. Your win is still a win. It may not look like my son, Gus, but it's still a win. So, whether they're speaking through a device, they're still speaking. That's still their voice. Or if they're moderate, wherever they're at, a win may not look like my son's, but you want to work on a daily win. And you're going to make that child, you're going to improve that child and go from there. So I think it's a very relevant point.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say let's just say that we were going to the gym together. I'm not going to compare how much you're lifting to how much I'm lifting. Clearly, that's never going to be the case. Like, you're obviously probably going to lift a lot more than I am. And so, like, that is the whole thing. Comparison is the root of all evil. Like, we just don't want to sit there and compare our kids about why someone else is further along than other people. We just need to focus on what we need to do. So you talk about the sight and the vision for the book. So is that where are you taking us? In terms of, did you want to show the audience how far you had come with Gus and what all the journeys and all the strategies that you had applied?
Well, so the premise of sight and vision, and I think every parent needs to have this, in particular with a child on the spectrum. Your sight is your day-to-day grind. So your sight is where it comes into play with the 2% rule. What am I doing? The grind every day to get that kid better. But I think while that's going on, you have to look ahead 5 years, 10 years. So the example I used in my book was we were hitting middle school, early high school, and it was questioning, a lot of people are questioning if Gus would be able to go to college. So my mindset was, okay, if he can't, are we looking at a blue collar job, a trade? What can we do? Then I mentioned the only modality that I mentioned in my book where my son was highly successful. He went to Brain Balance, and which is based on the works of Dr. Robert Malello, who changed my son's life. And it's about neuroplasticity and changing the way the brain is wired. After 3 semesters, there was a seismic difference in my son. So the vision board in both my sons, neurotypical and like I said, Gus on the spectrum, both have a vision board that I have a map out. And Gus's vision board changed because he started advocating for himself. His grades improved. He was socializing better. So what we saw was he was producing like a 3.8. Now, they didn't let him take advanced placement courses, which I questioned, but they didn't. but he had a 3.8 GPA, driving to school every day. And he had, thank God, out of the neighborhood, a close group of friends. And my wife and I realized, no, college is a possibility. So that vision within a 3-year period, well, a year and a half to 2 years, changed immensely. It went from what are we going to do after, like I said, trade or blue collar, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But now we have a young man that's going to be able to get a degree, and I'm happy to say that he's just made dean's list at Kent State University here in the States. He's a junior, and we're a year away from his first degree, and it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get there. But the point being, again, you have to have the sight and you have to have the vision. Grind every day, that's your sight, but always have that vision board in place for your child, and it's going to vary depending on where they're at on the spectrum.
Yeah, I love that, because so often, we have this vision. I've still got a vision board from when my son was young. So there's a photo on the vision board, and it's me and him. And then I put like a talk bubble, and it's in the talk bubble, it says, "Look, Mum, I'm talking." And it still gets me.
That's incredible. I love that.
And I think it's important to have a place to put your vision, to put your hopes, because when things get scary and when things get tough, you want to be able to rely on that vision to keep you strong, right? To have something to work towards, because otherwise it can feel very, very hard and very difficult, and like, what's the point sort of feeling. And if you've got that vision, you can really work towards it. One of the things that I notice a lot is that fathers really do resist the autism diagnosis. There's a lot of pushback, especially, I would definitely say, especially in the Greek community, from what I see over here. That idea that they don't want to think that something is different with their child, that their kids are just going to be like with all the other kids and you're just going to get on with it. And it's a difficult pill, for no doubt, for both parents to swallow. But I think that it's hard if you have a son who is going through an autism diagnosis, and then dad's just, how do we even manage this? Because as men, I don't know, a lot of the Greek men, they don't really talk a lot. There's a lot of talking, but not about the serious stuff. It's all about the soccer and the footy and the light stuff. They don't really get down to the heavy stuff. What's your opinion, and what's your thought process on that?
So I have tremendous exposure to this beyond Zito Hellas, by the way, beyond the Greeks. Again, one of the origins of the book was in 2014. I'm the first father to speak at the Autism Notebook Conference here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I had upwards of 10 to 12 wives line up while I'm speaking. And my first thought was, I offended someone. Oh my gosh, like, what did I say? But then I saw the emotion. You have to picture this. They're all standing there emotional. And when I jumped off the stage, they physically grabbed me and said, "Harry, we need your help. Our husband's on our board." And I end up actually, out of that, probably had multiple cups of coffees. I had some lunches. I had one dinner, and 2, unfortunately, hung up on me. What I found, though, after the multitude of fathers that I've spoke with, is they come into 2 categories. One is the machismo father that can't fathom that they sired a child that has special needs or social difficulties. It's beyond their ego, their hubris. That father I have had to be blunt with, and I have no qualms doing that. The other father hears about the diagnosis, and I say this all the time. I'm a man. What do men want to do? Fix things. If my child falls off their bike outside, what do? I put a Band-Aid on it, clean it up, and I'm done. Autism is a weighty diagnosis. So a lot of men are sitting there, and their stoicism is perceived as anger or resistance. It's really not. But in their head, they cannot figure out how to fix autism. And some of those fathers, when I calm them down and I have the talk with them, and I'll explain what that talk is, that they are like, you're right. I need to get on board. Just let my wife know I'm on the board. But, I try to remind those fathers, even the fathers that are too macho, that God doesn't make a mistake. And I say this every speech, and I say it twice. God doesn't make a mistake. And I remind them to break through that hubris. You were chosen. God saw something within you, an inner strength, an inner patience, because it takes all of it. And you should be honored. You shouldn't be belligerent. You shouldn't be giving your wife hell. You should be on board and helping them. And I think hearing from another male sometimes and reminding them, giving them that perspective has really helped. I've seen it break like the frozen facade with some of these fathers, and they go, you're right. And I remind them, in your belligerence, your child is suffering. And I have no qualms calling someone's manhood out. A comprehensive male, and this comes from a martial arts perspective. Yeah, I could throw a roundhouse kick and I could throw an elbow and knock someone out, but I could cry and I could have emotion and empathy. That's what a true male should be, to be able to have both of those emotions. So forget the machismo and realize your sole purpose is to help that child. By standing in a corner and pouting, you're not a man, first of all. Second of all, you're not helping the child at all. Third, your spouse is suffering. And I can go back to the stress my wife was under that I'm responsible for. I publicly apologize in my book. But they need to know this. So I have no qualms getting verbal with them. And unfortunately, the two fathers that hung up on me couldn't get past their hubris. And I really felt for their spouses. And I don't know how that turned out. But I have had many, many of those chats, and I've been able to break through to many, many fathers.
You're so right with regards to that ego, right? And it is true, when as dads, if you're not going to come on board, from a mum's point of view, the weight that we carry and the decisions that we have to make, and we don't know, like I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what it's going to look like in the future. And sometimes you get decision fatigue. It's exhausting to try and have to always advocate, always choose the right decisions. Is this the right speechy? Is this the right OT? Is this the way that we want to go? Do we need to be including something else? It can be very hard to manage all of that as on your own. And so we do want dads on board. We do want them to cry and to grieve just like we have, because this is where I see a lot of relationships break down. I see a lot of marriages disintegrate because maybe mum wants to medicate and dad doesn't, or one wants to go to a special needs school and the other one doesn't, or for a multitude of reasons. And if we just break down that ego part, that plays such a big role. And I love that you pointed that out. You've mentioned a few times that you obviously love martial arts, and that the fact that you're an accomplished black belt. Is that the reason why you had the gloves on the front cover?
I thank you for asking this. So I toiled between martial arts and boxing. I love both, by the way, love both. And the reason, first of all, gold is the color of hope. So a little bit of, I'm going to include that. And I saw every day is me walking into the ring, whether it be a boxing ring or martial arts ring. And my thought was, I went in, I call it the warrior mentality. And I mean this in a good way. Every day when I woke up, my thought was, I need to be there to help my son. And then I go back, I'll lean on the 2% rule and everything else. And if there was a day that I got lazy or took off, to me, it was like having my guard up in a fight. You always have to do that. If you know how to fight, you should have your guards up. It was like dropping my guard and getting knocked out, so it was, I would think of myself, shame on me if there was a day where it's just lazy and I didn't do anything. So I wanted to go in every day with a warrior mentality. And when I was first putting the book out, it was funny. They sent me this beautiful cover with a father throwing the child in the air. And I go, no. I go, no. And they go, what's wrong with it? And I go, that's not me. I go, I want to bring an edge to the book. I wanted to bring that warrior mentality to the book. And I'm like, you know what? Boxing gloves are universal. They really are. I love boxing. And I'm like, that's the mentality. In fact, probably the first time I've said this openly on a podcast. I think my next book is going to be dad specific. And I'm going to break it down round by round, literally in like a boxing match, and touch on some topics. I've really thought about it a lot recently, and I want to go with that boxing theme again. But that's why they're on there. I wanted someone, and again, with our blood, I should say I have Spartan blood. But it was bringing that Spartan mentality. I'm ready to fight for my son every day, and I didn't want to take a day off. So they were a little surprised, and I threw that out, and I said, I want boxing gloves on there. And it has been a brilliant decision because people ask me, and they love the concept.
And I think it's a really good talking point as well. Like, it's a beautiful way to encourage and encompass the fighting gloves, the boxing gloves. And the reality is that we have to fight for our kids. Like, that is the reality of this world. We are fighting for our kids every single day. And so every single day, these parents are putting on their boxing gloves, right? Ready to go, because that's what society, unfortunately, that's what it looks like right now. So what inspired you to write the book? Was it because you wanted to share your journey with Gus and what had happened, or was there something else behind it?
It's funny because God works in interesting ways. In the back of my mind, I thought I need to write a book after the incident in 2014. Then I held off. I'm a pretty busy guy, and the other thing that wasn't mentioned, I'm heavily involved. I'm a sports influencer here in Pittsburgh, the University of Pittsburgh sports. Do a little bit of Steelers. I was writing a lot of sports. I've diminished that a bit because of all the writing with the book. And then I spoke again at the Autism Caring Center, which is a beacon of light here in Pittsburgh, and the brilliant Kelly Kane here locally that founded it. And I believe, again, the first father to speak, and more mothers ran up to me. Before that speech, I looked at my amazing warrior mom, wife, Michelle, and I said, you know what? This speech, if I just blow it up on steroids, and at that time in my mind, I thought 150 to 200 pages, I said, this is my book. But that day solidified it. I had so many mothers coming up to me going, your voice needs heard on a national level. The other thing I will tell you, I have been the guy that's introduced many of the who's who mothers in the States, and they're all amazing. But I'm talking very well-known warrior moms there in Barnes & Noble. They have millions of followers. And I asked two in a row, Kate Swinson and Carrie Cariello, name me 5 dads that are like big in the space. Not one. I could see the blank look initially. And God bless them, they're both amazing. Their books are incredible. But I thought to myself, and I think what I've seen, and I met with Joey Porter from the Pittsburgh Steelers here locally, a sports star. He started a school. Dan Marino, famous University of Pittsburgh quarterback here, started a foundation. So it's not that they're not involved, but not many have gone pen to pad. They started a school, a foundation. So I'm not done. I have anywhere from 2 to 3 more books in me with ideas. I mentioned one earlier that I have in mind. I want to start a series. They're going to be a little more father specific, but I'm really excited to sit back down and get writing.
And for that, we are grateful. We are grateful that we have you in that space to be able to share that with parents, especially dads, to know that it's okay to go through all these things. And I love that idea of breaking it down so that it's in easy bite-sized chunks for dads to really understand what to do next and how we can move through that ego so that we can better support our child and our spouse or our wife. So I love that. Where can people purchase the book?
Sure. So again, it's From Struggle to Strength, The Father's Journey with Autism and the Power, Hope, and Positivity. It's available on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. And I will tell you, it's a small book, but I found out the hard way. Recording on Audible is not fun. It's like 2 hours per chapter. Your eyes go crazy. But again, so if you go to, we just literally revamped the website, harrypsaros.com. So Harry, Psaros.com. You can learn about me, learn about my family. There's a lot of interviews there. I gave a huge keynote address to the Leadership 100, which is part of the Greek Orthodox Church, about a month ago. That speech is up there. I'm getting asked to speak more nationally. I'll be speaking at a huge research gala in New York at the end of May. So things are picking up. It's really pluming right now, and I'm far from done.
Harry, that's amazing.
It's been amazing, Natalie. And I will tell you this, I tell my boys this all the time, and this is my mentality is, in life, in the game of life, you either sit on the bench or you play in the game. And people that play in the game are the people that make an impact. And I don't plan on sitting down at any time soon. So I'm really excited. And I will tell you though, hearing from the multitude of people, I told you this weekend I had 2 to 3. I heard from 2 to 3 people from around the world, not just the States. And you understand the Greek concept of philotimo, good for the sake of doing good. My book is my act of philotimo. I want to help others, but man, am I getting it back tenfold. I mean, when I hear from people around the world, and I laugh because no one believes I'm going to get back to them. And I got back to all 3 of these mothers, and they're like, whoa. And, and I've had fathers reach out and ask for advice. I think I might start an advice column on my site. I think it'd be smart.
Yes,
And
do it.
it has been so great giving back, and I hope to continue to do so. So this is the launch pad, and I'm blessed to know that my first book has gone international. We're converting it into 4 languages as well. Greek will be one of them.
My goodness, Harry, look at you go. This is amazing. And yes, when you do good, you do get good back. And I firmly believe that. And I think that this is so much of what you were built to do. Like you were saying before, God doesn't make a mistake. And this is clearly your journey alone, not Gus's journey, your journey to be able to share this with dads, with families, with mums, so that they can better equip themselves with what the journey might look like. And I think that's really important. Now I listened to it on Audible. I loved listening to it on Audible. Because I'm, as we know, with mums, it's you're trying to multitask. You're listening, you're exercising, you're trying to do all the things. But yes, I will grab the link off you and I will post it in socials so people can know where to buy it. And now it's time for rapid fire questions. So are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received as a parent?
Best piece of listen first. My late father, George, who was my son's best friend, honestly, it was tough when he passed. But my dad always said, they're talking for a reason. They want to be heard. So, especially males have you always want to put your finger up and go, now you listen to them first, because they're really trying to relay something to you. And I think it's very important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And especially as Europeans, we like to talk a lot. So
yes, my wife can attest to that. I never shut up, and it's I've learned to shut my mouth and listen a lot more.
Yeah, no, I love that. What's a moment that has made you really proud as a parent?
Oh boy, that's a great. I will tell you, I'm proud of both my sons. I'm so close with both of them, but I will tell you, when Gus, with that day when my wife and I were sitting here in my study and the acceptance letter from Kent State came in, if I have to isolate it to one son, after being told countless times that he would never get to that point, nonsense. I looked at her and I go, I'm like, he accomplished this through grit, but we did this. In my book, my themes are hope, positivity, resilience, and grit. And all that came out in that moment. The tears, everything. Just knowing that and look, college hasn't been easy for him, but he's figured it out now, and he hit us. But that moment when he got into college, all the naysayers were shut up that day. I was excited.
I love that because, yeah, we do get told. How many times have you been in an office, or I've heard countless stories of parents being told that their child will never talk, never walk, never amount to anything, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to pause these people and be like, are you God? Are you psychic? Do you have a crystal ball that I do not have? Until then, you might want to close your mouth and keep your opinions to yourself, because that is what they are. They're an opinion. That is your opinion and you are entitled to it. But at the same token, you don't know what is involved and what the future holds for our children. So I get very frustrated when I hear this from people that we are supposed to put our trust and faith in, doctors, pediatricians, all that sort of stuff, where they're giving an opinion. Really, that's all it is an opinion. What is the most valuable lesson that you've learned working with Gus and raising Gus, and also your neurotypical child?
Oh boy. First of all, I would say, in terms of raising both of them, is treating them as equals, and it's hard, but I really try to spend an equivalent amount of time with both. And in doing so, and I talk about it in my book, Max, who's 195 pounds of muscle, he's a American football up at Allegheny College, go Gators, here north of Pittsburgh, is tough as Max was, and Gus is my happy hippie. Gus is always smiling and happy. I think putting them together a lot, spending a lot of equal time together, they've grown up exceptionally close. And they're both completely different, yet they both learn from each other. It's magical, it really is. I would say, if I did recommend, I know it's hard. You have to put so much in to a child on the spectrum, but make sure you're delineating the time equally with all your kids, and take them out. If I could throw one more out there, don't have them sit in front of the TV and just keep them isolated. Get them out. Every interaction at a grocery store, at a ball game, even if it's one or two words, is better than nothing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we're a big fan of exercise. It's not uncommon for my little one to go for a 10K bike ride or a 20K bike ride with his dad. So I think it's really important to have that exercise because we know how much it impacts the brain. So
Absolutely.
yes, get them out there. And there needs to be a little bit of a push. And I feel like we're at that stage now where we're ready to push my son just a little bit further, trying to get him out of that comfort zone. Because it's easy to stay there because it's easy, calm waters when it's in the comfort zone. But sometimes we need to have that little bit of a push. What is, outside of your book, what is a favorite book that you would recommend the audience to read?
Oh boy. This sounds, I'm a student of Stoic philosophy. So I love Meditations from Marcus Aurelius. I'm teaching Stoic philosophy to both of my boys. And first thing, Stoicism 101, control the controllables. So I tell them every day, if you're upset, if you're angry, it's your fault. Everything falls on you. You're responsible. The other book that I mentioned before, in terms of guide rails in my life. So when I mentioned Stoicism, that's Epictetus, Seneca. There's a lot of books there. Also, honestly, the Art of War. It's an oldie but a goodie, but there are just so many books you can reflect on and look. But I would say anything Stoic from Stoicism and the Art of War, some of the ones that are go-tos for me on a regular basis. And I will tell you, it's amazing. I have a minor in philosophy from the University of Pittsburgh. I probably at the time should have went on to get a dual degree with it. And then Ryan Holiday has become he's made Stoicism sexy. All of a sudden, something I've been studying for 25 years is now everyone. But I love it. I think it's great for a mindset, and I'm teaching it to Gus and Max at the moment as well.
I love that. And I love the balance it's very real balance between a neurotypical child and a neurodivergent child, and what that looks like to give them both the time that they need. And if there is an unevenness or not a balance, I could feel a lot of those neurotypical children just feel so left out and they don't feel like they're connecting a lot with their parents, because most of the time parents are generally putting all of their energy into their neurodivergent child. And sometimes that balance, it's a hard one to sort of measure out. Has that been your experience?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I get asked this a lot. And in fact, I talked to a couple like 2 weeks ago where they had two children. They have three children, two were on the spectrum. And they're like, we feel like we're neglecting. And I'm like, you can't. I'm like, just, you can't. Again, it's all mindset. I said, start divvying up your time. I said, if one of you's with the two, the other one should be doing something. Try to have them doing things together. But it's not easy. I understand that. I'm empathetic to that, because looking back with our initial struggles with Gus, it was very easy to ignore Max. We're fortunate they're about 2 years apart, but progressively growing up, all their friends in the neighborhood are all around the same age. We're able to keep them together, but it's a fight, and I get that. But I would say you want to make sure not to favor one over the other.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so the last question is, how do you find gratitude in life?
I'm sorry, how do I find what?
How do you find gratitude in life?
Oh, I think what I find is pausing in the moment. And it's hard for me when I say this. Anyone that knows me, I'm a ball of fire. I go 100 miles an hour with my hair on fire all the time. But I love life. I don't know if it's a Greek thing, it's in my DNA, but I think if you absorb gratitude, see, this is easy for me. I lean on the positivities in my DNA, and I feel bad. I know there's a lot, and I've worked with my friends that tend to be a bit glib. When I say glib, I don't mean that, more negative, lean. You know what I mean? Sometimes, and it's easy to fall into that, but sitting back in the quiet moments, I think we're in a society now where everyone's looking for what more can I get, what more can I have? Just appreciate what you have. And when I think of my wife, I think of my family, I think of my sons in particular, and I'm already rich. Even if I don't make another dollar, I'm already a rich man. So it's having that perspective to sit back, exhale, I tend to do a lot of functional strength workouts by myself out in at parks, local parks. And I did it today, actually, before we met. It's probably why I'm red. And it's a Zen moment for me. And moments like that is where I sit back and realize that life is special. I've been pretty fortunate, and it lessens that desire for that. We're in that society where everybody wants the next thing, But I think to have that quiet moment and gratitude in life, just look around what you have, and that's kind of me in general. I don't know how other people function.
I love that so much. So just remind everyone on socials where they can find you.
Okay. Yes. So my name's on the bottom. I see that, which is great because I don't have to spell it a lot. But so first of all, Instagram, which has been growing like crazy for me. I'm at Harry Psaros. Very simple. You can find me on Instagram. Facebook. Send me a request. Interact with me. I'll interact with you. It's Harry Psaros. Now Twitter is at Pit Guru, PITTGURU. And there's a mix of sports, and I'm also very much into motivation and nutrition. So I mix that in as well. And lastly, LinkedIn. Anyone who wants to connect from a business standpoint, Harry Psaros, pretty straightforward. So, and lastly, again, my website, which has all of my information on me, my family, my book, speeches, interviews. It's harrypsaros.com. Which was revamped about a week ago. So you're going to see the new clean site if you jump on there right now.
Awesome, Harry. Thank you so much. And if anyone's got any information about brain balance, there's definitely, I know, one location in Melbourne. I'm not sure about other states, but we will pop some information in the show notes as well if you're wanting to know information about that. Thank you so much, Harry, for coming on and chatting. I hope that the book continues to succeed, and you are just such a shining light for so many dads that are so needed. So thank you again for coming on.
Thank you. It has been an absolute honor. I'm tickled pink to know that I'm the first dad. So something historic on your site. I love it. But thank you so much. Wishing you the best. I hope one day, I know right now we're literally worlds apart, but I hope that we can meet one day. It'd be great.
That'd be so good, Harry. Thank you so much. See you later.
Take care.